Welcome to this special episode on releasing grief. Um, my name is Dana J. Smithers, and I am an entrepreneur and I'm a certified law of attraction trainer. I'm also a certified emotion code practitioner, as well as I work with women, guiding them through to help them discover their sacred gifts. But I've more of my business and more is moving over to using the emotion code on women that are either in transition. Lot of women going through depression or lack of motivation. They may in fact be stuck in their business, but it's that's not only the type of clients that I seem to be attracting lately. So because so many of them are talking about grief, but many people aren't labeling what's going on in their life as needing the grieving process. So I'm going to spend some time today talking about that. As you know, Alina Genican and I, the Emotion Code Divas, our intention is to educate, inspire, heal, and release trapped emotions. So that's a little introduction for me. Alina, why don't you go ahead and say hello to our viewers and people that will be watching the recording.
Excellent. So my name is Alina Genican. I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist as well as a certified emotion code practitioner. And in my business, in my hypnosis business, I see a lot of men and women who are wanting to stop smoking. I am the stopsmokinglady.com.
Mhm.
Also wanting to release excess weight, relieve anxiety, medical anxiety, social anxiety. But what I am finding is that all of my clients are benefiting and loving the emotion code, so much so that they're booking sessions just for the emotion code because we can do it over video. They don't have to come into my office, and it's amazing the changes that people feel and the results I'm getting by adding it in. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, and I'm finding that too, Helena, that a lot of business entrepreneurs that I'm working with that are maybe stuck in their business, or they just hit that slump, right? Or they get into a real lack consciousness, or also the I'm not good enough story that they tell themselves. And those are just all about trapped emotions. So even if I'm coaching someone, I absolutely, it's 45 minutes of business, but then 15 minutes of emotion code session. And that just helps them move on and get through things. So we really, really like that. So why don't we go ahead and just talk a little bit about how we got introduced to the emotion code work.
And I got introduced to the emotion code by you, Dana. You are my business coach, and thank you for helping me create such a wonderful and thriving business. And you introduced me to the emotion code, and this is the book I got, The Emotion Code by Dr. Bradley Nelson. It's a fabulous read. It's quite an easy read because it's lots of case studies, but it tells you how to do the emotion code practice or technique. But to go in depth and to get certification is really valuable too.
Yeah, and when you get certified, you have to work with 30 clients in total. I think 25 or 26 are people and 4 animals. And I really enjoy working with the animals. I've been working with dogs and cats, but my goal this summer is to do more work with horses. Yeah, and I mean, they have trapped emotions. All animals do, right? In fact, I'm working with a woman right now, and one of her dogs was she got it from a shelter. She volunteers at a shelter, and the dog, 2 of them showed up on the side of the road, a male and a female. Neither of them were neutered, so they were probably puppy mums and bred, and somebody just left them. So my client, while I was working on her, she'd have to talk about her dog, and I said, oh, well, let me do some work there. And of course, the dog has abandonment issues and wasn't treated very well. We can tell that from just some of the emotions that come up. So I'm really enjoying being able to do that with her for that. And also that there's no question that animals go through grieving process as well. I've had even examples of my own cat missing another cat, and you hear stories about, dogs missing dogs, or even animals missing owners, and on it goes. So we're going to talk a bit more about grieving, but just before we do that, Helena, let's just share the steps that we go through, that anybody can also go through, of course, through the book. But the first one that we need is
permission. And permission is that we always ask our clients for permission to tap into them energetically, to work with them. We just don't go work on a stranger, at the grocery
right.
store or somewhere like that.
Yeah, and it's just like when my client mentioned her dog, and I said, "Oh, would you like me to work on her?" So what happens then is she's holding the animal, she becomes a surrogate, but then I become the proxy. So I'm working for the animal. She's the surrogate, but I'm now going to be the proxy. So we're going to tap into my subconscious. So maybe just tell us a little bit about that, Helena.
So the proxy is the permission to tap into the other person's subconscious mind, and we actually become that person. And Dan, I don't know about you, but sometimes, quite often actually, I can feel the emotion that other person has, and as we're releasing it, I can actually feel relief. And
Yes,
yeah,
I absolutely concur, Helena. Sometimes even more emotion, sometimes just sadness, and even the grief myself, which is why we're going to ask them to, what sort of level is the pain that they're experiencing. So we call it severity, and we always ask them, but then we test ourselves as well to see what it is. And likely somebody that's severity is going to be sort of 7, 8, 9, 10, and our goal is to get it down to certainly a 0, a 1, or a 2. And sometimes if I get it to a 2 or 3, then I just say, you know what, let's just work on it another time, because I'm often doing 3 sessions with someone, and not just the 1 session. Yeah. Helena, I just wanted to say hello to a few of our viewers that we have today. Karen Woodfield says that we look fabulous. Thank you. Well, we are the divas, that's sort of what we expect, right? She's going to watch later. Jeannie Brazell is saying good morning. And one of our loyal followers from England, Rumford, Essex, Natasha Paula Samuel says, hi, ladies, watching from a cloudy Rumford, Essex. And I think they often have the same weather as us. And I know that another one of our loyal followers, Sylvia Bellini from London, saw our post about the show. I don't know if she can make it today or not, but the beautiful thing is you can watch this anytime. Helena and I both have a YouTube channel, so they're always put up there. So let's just move on with the steps then. And so when we're testing that severity, we're actually doing what's called muscle testing.
Muscle testing, that's right. Muscle testing is I'll show my muscle testing, then I'll explain it. But what I do is I interlock these 2 fingers into like rings. And then whenever I think of the word yes, or the answer is yes, my subconscious knows to lock my fingers tight together. And when the answer is a no, they just slip apart. So muscle testing is an agreement that I have with my subconscious mind to answer yes or no questions.
Yeah, and
how do you do yours?
Well, I do mine, and in the book, Dr. Brad has about 6 different ways that you can do it, but I do mine with my index and thumb finger together, closed, and then I use my index and thumb finger on my other hand, and then that's a yes is nice and tight, and a no is like that. So because we are doing the muscle testing, generally not in person, so it can be on phone. We even use, I did one yesterday on FaceTime. You can do Facebook chat, you can do Zoom, you can do all sorts of things. But even if you are just doing it on the phone, muscle testing in person, you could test to see what their benchmark is you may have seen this one where people put the arm out and you say your name, and somebody presses on your hand just above these 2 bones on your wrist. So if someone's pressing there and I'm to say my name is Dana, then my arm would stiff. If I said my name is Helena, my arm would go down. And it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And I'm going to talk about um, something called the map of consciousness. And this was created by Dr. David Hawkins. And he measured energetic frequencies using muscle testing. So he did that on thousands and thousands of people, which is how he came up with the different levels of energy, the different emotions. And, I'm going to talk about that a bit more today, but that's why we do the muscle testing. It's amazing that is so truthful. It's a yes or a no. And then, so what are we testing, Helena?
So what we're testing is we're testing the emotions on the emotion code chart. So this is my chart here. Dr. Bradley put it together, and it's got 2 columns. It's got 6 rows, and it has 60 different negative emotions on it. So what we're looking for is if there's a negative trapped emotion that we can release today, is it in column A or column B? Is it in an odd row or is it in an even row? And that will bring us to one particular cell. And then we can just ask individually of those 5 different emotions if it's that one that can be released now. And we do that over and over and over again until there's no more, and we get a severity of a low number, or even better yet, a 0.
Right. And then the way that we actually release the trapped emotion, since we are being the proxy, is through using the use of a magnet. Yeah. Now,
That's
if you
right.
didn't have a magnet, I often I have my emotion code chart on my phone, so I'm often I like to go down to the beach. I've got a really quiet, secluded spot, and I'll often do sessions there. And I don't necessarily have my magnet, but your hand can be used as a magnet as well. But Alina and I have our magnets. Yeah.
I have magnets everywhere in my car,
Yeah.
in my purses, in my home office, at my work office, magnets all over the place.
Yeah. So what we're actually doing with the magnet is once we find one of those, one of the trapped emotions from the chart, then we're asking the question, can we release it? And if I get a yes, I can release it. Then I go ahead and I take the magnet from this governing meridian, because we're all energy. We have chakras, we have meridians all over our body, we have energy points all over our body. We actually have hundreds of chakras, but most people are just familiar with 7 energy points. But we take it sort of from just above the lip, run it over our head to the back of our neck, and we do that 3 times. And what happens is we are demagnetizing that trapped emotion that has come up. So we're demagnetizing it just the same way in your purse, that if you get your credit card too close to a magnet, it demagnetizes it. That's why it may not be working. So we do 3 swipes if the trapped emotion belongs to the person we're working with, but it could be inherited. So what do we do if it's inherited?
Well, we swipe it 10 times. And what we're doing that is we're releasing the trapped emotion from the person themselves that we're working on, and also the previous generations, and also possibly if you passed on the negative trapped emotion to your children, then from your children as well. As that inherited trapped emotion was passed down through the genes at the time of conception. Now, it doesn't happen for every single generation, so sometimes it skips a generation.
Exactly. So it's really very interesting, and I've been doing this since 2016, and occasionally I will get, it comes up that it's a past life.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Trapped emotion. Now that might be a little woo-woo for some people, but it does happen. And when that trapped emotion comes up from a past life, we can remove it the same way that we do if it was just your own emotion. And the last thing that we have to make sure that we're doing all the time is what, Helena?
Hydrated practitioner. I've been waiting for this card because I need to hydrate.
Exactly. Yeah, I just bought myself a new glass. I don't know if you can see it, but it's one of those with the bumblebee on it.
Oh,
it's a very French kind of glass. I like these.
Yes, I see that. Dan, I think we need to go to France together one day.
Hey, I'm in. My sister's got tours to France that we could do as well. But anyway, let's go ahead. Let's get rocking on our show here, and I'll just see if we have anybody else that's saying hello. Not that I can see at this moment, so we're just going to go ahead. So, Helena, tell us a little bit about the person that you're going to work on today, and we know that the severity is a 10.
We know the severity is a 10, and she's a lady of, she's just in her mid-60s, and just in the mid-60s, because that's the new, like 50 or 40s, and we just seem to be getting younger and more vibrant with age. With that, I just have to pull out this little card right here. And I believe that to be true. I believe that people are feeling and acting younger simply because the subconscious mind does not know the difference between an actual experience that produces an emotion and an emotion that you fabricate by thought alone. By thinking young, believing you're young, remembering all the fun times, imagining all the fun times to come and all the health and stuff, I believe that we're actually resetting our genes and keeping us young. But this lady is going through some grieving, and because her husband is not well at the time, and she expected, I believe, a different life going forward for the two of them, and so to help her just feel better, I'm going to be working on her and seeing if there's any trapped emotions that I can release, so she can just feel better.
Great. All right.
Yeah.
And so now I'm going to talk about the 5 stages of grief. Now, I've done a lot of research on this because I've often been working with people, even some of my clients when I'm working on business, I end up doing a lot of life coaching with them. But there is a famous woman who did research on the 5 stages of grief for when someone dies, and her name is Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. You may know about her teachings and the work that she's contributed to going through the grieving process. But so I'm going to talk about the 5 stages that she talks about. But what I want you to do is think broader than just going through grieving when somebody dies. There are so many times in life that we go through grief, which is feeling a loss of something. That's what grieving does. We're feeling a loss of something. So some people could even feel a loss when they come out of the womb, and here they are in this world, and it's like, whoa, what am I doing here? Now, that might be a little woo-woo for you, but if not, it makes perfect sense to Helena and I that somebody could be grieving the minute they come to the planet. So there's so many times that we grieve in our life. We could be grieving about the loss of a relationships. We could be grieving about issues that we have with siblings, that we don't have a better relationship. We could be grieving the loss of a parent. We could be grieving the loss of a parent getting older. We could be grieving ourselves getting older. We could just be grieving the loss of really fabulous health that we used to have. As women get older, we go through a stage called menopause, and for some, that's a little bit tough to take in their life. Many people grieve the loss of women can't have children anymore. Some women just grieve the fact that they're getting older. Sometimes with menopause, there is a weight gain. Sometimes the gray hairs start to creep in. So this is loss of our youth, loss of who we were. Sometimes if I can remember when I was moving from Vancouver to Toronto when I was 17, my parents didn't really tell me anything about it except pack up, we're leaving. Well, I didn't know it, but I was grieving the friends that I left behind, the school, the life I knew, everything that was familiar to me was gone. So I was grieving. Lifestyle change. If you have a change in your finances, you can be grieving. So there's lots and lots of things, but generally the 5 stages that most people go through are, the first one is denial. And since I am a law of attraction practitioner and trainer, we always say that go through the negativity briefly. Have your hissy fit, have your anger, strike out, be mad, punch, whatever. But when it comes to determining how brief your grieving is, that's entirely up to you. Some people have lost a spouse, and maybe within a few months they're out looking for somebody else. For some people, they may never look for anybody else. That was the love of their life. Some people, it may take a couple of years. So there's no time frame on it, right? There's no time frame. So it's your briefly. It doesn't matter how long it is. But the first stage is denial, where it's almost like, well, this can't be happening. It's not happening. I'm going to ignore it. So you can do that. And then you may then move on to the next stage, which is anger. So when you're in this anger stage, there's all sorts of negative emotions going on. And when those negative emotions are out there and you're fighting against them and you're mad and you're resisting and, life sucks and how did I attract this and all of that, you can find yourself going into a victim stage, and that's okay. Just be angry. Let it go, let it rip. Now, we don't necessarily go through all of these stages in order. You may find that you get yourself in the stage of anger, but then you go back to denial. This really can't be happening, right? And then you may find that you go on to the third stage, and this is often one that is used when somebody is sick or not doing well, or somebody is dying, or there's some kind of a traumatic situation where you kind of start bargaining with God or bargaining with whatever you believe in, that if this person lives, I'll never do this again, or whatever. So it could be all sorts of things. And also, too, as I said earlier on, these emotions could all pertain to the loss of an animal or a cat. I know when my cat was in the process of leaving us, we didn't know what it was going to be, but it was about 6 months from the time she got sick to. So trust me, I was doing a lot of bargaining, and finally, you have to get to that place where maybe there is a little bit of depression. You feel sad for the loss. You know that it's going to happen. You can get depressed. Just let it be. Again, there's no time frame on this. And then the final stage, according to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, is acceptance. And so what acceptance means is that you're accepting the situation for what it is. It is what it is. But, acceptance doesn't mean resignation and feeling life is terrible and is this all there's ever going to be to life. No, acceptance means accepting it. And in my opinion, if we do remove those negative emotions that are there when that acceptance comes, then you can start to move forward. Because in life, we're never meant as humans to stay stagnant. We're meant to learn and to grow and to move on. And so that's when you get to that stage of acceptance, and there's no time frame on it. So you can grieve all sorts of things in your life. Maybe you've got even, new buildings, new developments coming in your area, and, all of a sudden you no longer have that sea view that you used to have. Well, grieve it, go through it. And then eventually, as we also like to say in the law of attraction, we do this, which means, do you remember what this means, Helena?
Oh, just
Remember
checking
this
my notes.
little thing we do?
Oh, hang on, I'm a little delayed.
Okay, all right. So
the scale,
build a
vibrational meter.
Okay, close, but no, this one is build a bridge and get over it, right?
Oh,
Yeah, build a bridge and get over it. Michael started that, so we kind of all use it. So just a little bit of information about this map of consciousness. So you can look up David Hawkins. He's no longer with us on this plane, but he's done lots of YouTube videos about this. But, if you look at where grief resonates down here on the scale, super, super low, right? So grief is down here where all these other negative emotions are. And then you raise your vibration a bit, even when you move up into anger. And once you can get from that anger, and like I say, just let it rip, do whatever you need to do. I was telling Helena on the last show, I was kind of yelling in my car the other day, just letting it out, right? heading off somewhere, but then I had to apologize to my car because I have a relationship with my car, and I felt badly that I was yelling in her car. So I forgave myself for that, and so did she. So from anger, then we're going to go way up here to acceptance. So acceptance vibrates on such a higher scale than if you go back from grief. And then, once you get to acceptance, then you can start to look at these, feeling these other emotions again, right? Of feeling love and joy and gratitude, and maybe even finding some peace in the situation, because life is complicated. We are just full of emotions, and those negative emotions can be released, which is why Helena and I love this work so much and why we do it all the time. Sometimes, somebody will just even send me an email and make a comment in it, and I'll just say, hey, do you want a quick emotion code session or something? Just because I can feel the energy, even in the email, that some negative emotions are going on. Even in Facebook posts, right, where we look at someone, but we would never work on anyone without their permission again. So that's a little bit of education about what's going on when you're grieving, and just know that, take a look in your life where maybe you haven't done some grieving about something, and maybe you need to. So, or not need to, but maybe the release would help you feel better and you could move forward. And I believe this is why a lot of people are stuck in broken marriages. If someone is a widow or a widower, that they're still grieving. And I think especially to, people your age, Helena, even a little bit younger, that have aging parents, where you have to make those decisions. How much can you take care of them? You have a caretaker, but, do they eventually have to go into a home? That's a whole other topic, but, you have to get to that point, where you're, where you're going through these stages and finally get to that place of acceptance, because it's only once you get to acceptance that you can move forward. It's like, all right, it is what it is. And then we move forward. So Helena, what trapped emotions did you find and release for our anonymous viewer?
Our anonymous viewer. There was I did 3 questions actually, because I did first of all about the grief, about the life that they were, what she was planning to have. And so the first one came up was worthless, which so many of us carry, and we don't even know that we're carrying it. Shame came up, and then was rejection, and then terror. But terror was inherited from the mom's mom. And when I did the terror, I could actually feel the terror in my body. And so many people, moms, live through war, live through depression.
That's exactly what I was thinking, that, a lot of people that have immigrated, and certainly that age would be around, the grandparents and the whole, the World War II, and even earlier than that, right? The First World War, there's some people whose parents, we've inherited emotions from that, and even further down, because it seems there's always been wars.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. There's always been wars, so those definitely are. So that was an inherited emotion.
Yeah, and that was my whole body just kind of there was this wave of release when I did that. And when I mean release, it just kind of a sense of washing over my entire body and letting go, because that's heavy. That's heavy to carry around. And then I got to a place of effort unreceived, and as I got to effort unreceived, I started to smile, and then I had you on just in the background so I could hear you just subtly, and I started hearing you talk about smiling. And I thought, isn't that interesting how that kind of went together? And then it came down to a 0, and then I asked about what was my it was it's like caring for him, because now we know that there's probably going to be a whole lot of caring and taking care of the person that is not well. And I asked, is there any trapped emotions that can be released that will just allow me to care for my partner? And low self-esteem was the only trapped emotion. And once that went away, that was good. And then I had time to do one more question. And I know a little bit more about this lady, and asked about her business. And the first one that came up and that was released was shock. And once shock was gone, it was all a zero.
We're down to zero.
Down to zero.
That's great. So yeah, we'll get some feedback from her as well. And yeah, so so as we've said, take a look. Where do you need do some grieving? And I'll just read a few more comments here. Sylvia Bellini did check in with us. Oh, lovely day there in England. She's going to watch the replay as well, but I noticed that she came back on and she said, thanks for dealing with this subject. It's very close to my heart at this moment. And I believe that it is. And I have to do a little laugh here because Sylvia Bellini typed in the build a bridge and get over it, right? So I don't know if she knew that from the other shows or if she's just typing it because we said that, but that's really sweet. So yeah, so so our message for all of you, men and women, right? Know that there are so many times in your life that you are going to have to go through the grieving. And from all the reading that I've done as well, you don't actually have to go through all of these 5 stages. You might just get from denial, or you might just be in anger and go right to acceptance, depending on, acceptance really involves a lot of forgiving. So I actually do, when I work with people that are grieving as well, I give them what's called a forgiving letter. So they can just write a letter to themselves, whether they need to forgive themselves or somebody that's, maybe betrayed them, or maybe somebody's left, or like I say, maybe a pet is no longer with them and they're feeling the loss. So, it's okay, recognize it. And again, from a law of attraction perspective, deal with it briefly, but your briefly is whatever you believe your briefly to be.
Yeah. Just one other comment on forgiving. I was reading and studying the Course in Miracles a number of years ago, and
Yeah, me too.
a powerful workbook and message. And they kept saying forgiveness, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can learn to forgive someone else. But then they were saying forgive yourself, and I'm like, well, what do I have myself to forgive for? Everything. And once I just realized that there was no shame or guilt or whatever, it was simply just to release me. And then it was like, well, how do I do it? And then someone just said, just give it to God. Yeah. Whatever your God is, just give it over to God. Forgiving over to God.
Yeah.
All that is, higher power, whatever, your angels, whatever it might be. Just give it over to God. We don't know what to do with this stuff, but the higher power, energy, God, all that is, does.
Right, exactly. So that is our special episode for today, and we look good. The Divas look good. The Divas look really good in this. So we're starting the month of May, talking about weight, releasing weight. And Helena, our show is super exciting for tomorrow. We've already got a lot of people requesting that we work with them, but we've already selected someone. But do watch the show. So do you know what? It's episode 16.
Yes, and it is about food cravings, releasing food cravings, specific food cravings. And I've been using the emotion code with my weight release clients, and they come back the week later and they're like, yeah, no, I haven't had any specialty coffees and lattes and caramel macchiatos or chips or cheesies or whatever it was. And it works so well. I used to love chocolate, all forms of chocolate, and lately I've been like, oh, I really would like some chocolate. I really would like some chocolate, but there's no chocolate in my cupboard. You know what, Dana? There's been chocolate in my cupboard for months. I just never saw it. Isn't that interesting?
Perfect.
And I
Yeah.
didn't eat it.
Yeah. Yeah. I know last year when I was on Michael Lozier's show, which we do every Friday at 9, um, he worked on my not
Almond
obsession, but
croissant.
yeah, almond croissants, right? I mean, I love French baked things, but almond croissants Saturday morning, like it has to be top of the line almond croissant. I don't just eat any almond croissants. Having gone to France and experienced what a real almond croissant should taste like, as well as a baguette. But anyway, I haven't had an almond croissant since last June, so it's almost a year. I know, it's amazing. So I guess there's probably a few things I should look at right now and start doing it, because you can do the emotion code on yourself. I do find though that it is better if someone else does it for you. But definitely if I'm stuck in something, I'll give myself a quick emotion code and just go that way. So Helena, where can people find you if they want emotion code session or hypnosis?
People can find me at flourishhypnosis.com/emotion dash code. On there, I have a couple of videos explaining the emotion code and what to prepare for our session. And then there's an online calendar link. You can just go ahead and book yourself a session, and we'll do it over Skype or FaceTime, Messenger, or if you're local, come into my office.
Exactly. And Leslie Marshall, thanks so much for watching. So I'm Dana J. Smithers. You can find me at empoweredwomeninbusiness.com/emotion-code. And Helene and I both have YouTube channels where under our company name as well, where you can watch previous videos. So that's it for now. We'll be saying goodbye and we'll see you tomorrow. And please share. We're just, this is a fairly new show for us, but we believe it adds a lot of value to people's lives, and we really want to inspire people and keep you moving forward. Bye for now.